Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Prodigy from Kilo23. Today we've got Tony and Dustin from NBR, New Beta Republic, one of the bigger teams out in the Everett, Washington area. I love playing with these guys. They're fantastic guys, really good friends. And today we're going to talk about sniping in Airsoft. So that goes from anything from Airsoft, rifles, bolt actions, to BBs, to sidearms. We're going to cover the whole myriad of everything sniping today. Let's get right down to it. So we have a number of topics we're going to discuss today. First off, we're going to start with our rifles. Now, we each have our bolt action, at least one of them, each on display here. We're each running different rifles. And obviously, we've each had our pick of rifles. We've tried a number of different guns. We all seem to fall back on generally the VSR or the L96 design. They're kind of the go-to guns because they're really not tough to upgrade. They're kind of like price point pretty good considering compared to some of the other models out there. They work really well, they're fairly lightweight, and they shoot really well. So we really, there's nothing bad to say about them really. But we've each got a VSR here. Tony, why don't you start by talking about your VSR and just tell me about it.
So mine is basically mainly a Action Army. We have the AA Teflon cylinder, AA chamber for the hop-up unit. We also have the KM head bucking. It's a 55 degree with a concave nub in it. We're running 555 Laylax barrels that come out through the suppressor that we cut the bridge to work with the KM head, as we found the KM is the most accurate so far. Also in the bolt, I do have an AA piston, trigger, spring guide, M170 spring. The gun reaches about 600 FPS with a 2, around 400 with a 4.5. Probably the higher 3 points, so dual range.
Yeah, these things hurt. I'll give them that. So, in my rifle, I've got a JG Bar 10, just like Anthony here. And I've got a very similar part set in mine, but mine's just a more, less expensive gun build. He has a lot of Action Army parts, whereas I went kind of half Angel Custom and kind of half with what he did. So I've got a KM head barrel instead of the Laylax, the 430 mil, the Teflon 604 inner barrel. I've got the concave nub, the 55 degree KM head bucking, the AA chamber, which works incredibly well. Best airsoft chamber you can get, period. I went with the stock bolt just because I wanted to save about $70 or $80. I didn't feel it was necessary to get another one because I've got spares in case the back breaks off, which the original ones can under heavy stress. I'm using a Angel Custom trigger, which a lot of people, they frown on, they hate Angel Custom. I don't have a problem with it. Mine's been working for 2 years, no problem on a 170 spring, never had an issue. I'm using an Angel Custom piston and spring guide as well. I'm also using a PSS brand, I believe, cylinder head on this, which none of these other guys use. I kind of bought it just to see how it worked. It ended up working really well. It's got an O-ring that sits really on the end of the bucking, and it just seals incredibly well. So I get a very consistent air seal out of this. It's shooting over 600 FPS with 2s. I run 4.5s out of it, and I get it right around 400 feet per second with those. So it's very consistent, very very pleasing to shoot. Dustin, tell me a little bit about your gun there.
Well, mine stock platform is a Well MBO3. It is essentially just Well's variant of the VSR 10. It's all VSR 10 compatible inside. I run the AA chamber with a 45 degree KM head bucking and a Laylax 555 on the front end. I have Angel Custom trigger, cylinder head, spring guide, and piston. Run a Laylax 170 spring in here. Shoots around about 600 FPS with a .2 and about 385 with a 4.5 in it. Can't have no complaints about it. I've had it for about 2 years now and racked up a fair amount of kills with this thing.
Awesome. So like we're all using VSRs, like I said, are kind of our go-to guns. We've got 2 JGs and a Well. Such minor differences. Pickle Rick here as well.
I think actually to also go over, both these guys are rocking M170s from Laylax, and I'm using the Action Army, and I think it's important to note that we found through our tests the Action Army spring is not as good as the Laylax, as I lost about 20 to 30 FPS over the span of 2 or 3 months, as Andrew's been running his for over a year, I believe he said, and he only lost maybe 5.
Yeah, I've actually got like 2 years roughly on this, And as far as I can tell, I haven't lost hardly anything. So it's been really, really consistent from day one. So I'm really happy.
I think we can agree, spend the extra $10 and get that Laylax,
Yeah.
whether it's an M150 or M170, depending on your field limits. That would be the recommended spring to buy.
Definitely.
Yeah, the Action Armies, they'll tend to last about 3 to 5 months, give or take a little bit, before they start to degrade.
Yeah, don't buy Angel Custom because they die within like a day. So
Angel Custom, Action Army, their springs we haven't been really pleased with. Internals of Angel Custom, you hear lots of bad things about. I feel like all the forums and reviews, they rack on them really bad. But I have not had a single issue with my trigger yet. You know, it's lasted 2 years with heavy use without a problem, and I'm very happy with it. Dustin's been using a lot of Angel Custom parts, and they've been
power
working.
upgrade is Angel Custom.
Exactly, they've been working really well.
There's only one complaint that I've had, which is you can happen from Laylax to PDI to Action Army to Angel Custom, doesn't matter what. The only thing I've ever had go wrong is the trigger sear spring has broken.
Yeah.
And that can happen in any of them because it's just a really small, fine spring.
definitely any gun really.
Mm-hmm.
Should we go over the 96 a little bit? Let them know kind of what that's about.
I guess break up the
Brought
96.
his.
All right, so this is my pride and joy, my other platform. It was originally a UTG L96, the APS2 variant. We have I believe it's a 550. Yeah, we got a 550 Prometheus barrel with an R-Hop installed by Umbrella Armory. I got it off e-bike. We're using the flat hop modified bucking with flat hop nub with that, with the Action Army chamber. Yes, it is the hard top. Good thing to bring that up. Hard tight. Good to bring that up. It's the compression is absolutely amazing. I also have a Laylax piston, spring guide, and trigger unit, as I bought those upgrades about 6 years ago, back when Laylax was one of the only companies you could have. So obviously those parts were a little on the expensive side, but they've held up and taken almost no durability damage to them at all, and I've put thousands of rounds through this gun. Also, we note I got a pretty nice, it was only a $40 scope that Dustin recommended, and it's got a 50x objective lens on it, so it's extremely clear. It's more even clear than my Matrix scope that was 60 on my BSR. You really can't beat it, but we were getting, after he tuned it, we were getting 424 with a 4.5, and we were getting 414 with a 4.8, so we only lost 8 to 9 FPS going up to a 4.8 from a 4.5, which is insane. And the gun clocks at 590 though with it too, so it's field legal anywhere we really use in Washington. And a note on that is, in Washington, the field limits are a lot higher, so having a gun that's up to 600 is pretty common, and it's really not that dangerous because we keep 100 to 150 foot engagement, so nothing crazy happens to anybody.
Right. A lot of the fields, like our field Forest Fire Airsoft, we keep the speed limit at 550. We notice a pretty good balance. We do let some people run a little hotter, it varies. A lot of the fields on kind of the east side of the state, like Nighthawk per se, they've got a pretty low limit of about 500 FPS, so their limits are quite a bit lower over there, so just something to think about there. Alright, the next subject we're going to move on to is sidearms. That's a big thing for snipers, because usually the engagement range is anywhere from 75 to 100 feet at minimum. You go at the Nighthawk at 75 feet because they've got that lower FPS limit. But you come out to any of the fields on the west side, be it paintball station, forest fire, doesn't matter, they're usually 100 feet minimum. So sidearms are a big thing. Most of the guys that snipe, they go with the Mark 23 from Tokyo Marui. That's both Anthony and Dustin. So can you guys talk about your guns? How about Anthony first?
Alright, so what we did is I got a modified 603 VSR barrel because the Mark 23 from Tokyo Marui comes equipped where it can accept VSR cut. So we hacked it down to halfway through the suppressor. It gives you, since it's a non-blowback pistol, not rifle, just kidding, it gains FPS, so I'm shooting about 380 with a 2. I rock 3s in it. It's stock other than that, and I can hit targets at about 100 feet, 120 feet, no problem, all day. My only complaint about this pistol is probably going to be the fact that the trigger is a 2-stage, I believe is the name for it, so the trigger pull is really long. You can, however, cock it so it's a quick trigger pull, kind of like a revolver in your little Western movies. But to be honest, it's only really good for like a suppressed, silenced, defend yourself type thing if you don't want to get caught. Aside from that, real quick, if I'm feeling loud and proud, I generally will run my KWA Beretta M9 with a 50-round mag to get rid of those pesky AEG nerds. And it's a blowback, so it's not as reliable on gas as the Marui is. As the Marui, you can get 2 to 3 mags without refeeding the gas. So
Awesome. Justin, how about your Mark 23?
Well, my Mark 23, I did not leave it as simple as Tony has left his. I still have the barrel cut through here. It's an Action Army 601 tight bore VSR 10 cut. As he said, this is VSR compatible right off the shelf. I myself have went off and purchased a TDC dust cover, which is a top dead center dust cover for those who don't know the term, and an H plate, which is essentially a hard plastic nub that was 3D printed from a company in the UK called Hadron Designs to apply more pressure so I can hop BBs easier and at a more consistent flight pattern. With this, I have it set up, I'm shooting about 395 of the 2 to 398 and can hit someone easily at 200 feet.
Yeah. So that kind of goes with most pistol ranges are about 10 feet, I believe, at most fields.
10 to none, yeah.
Yeah. So that under 400, that somewhere to 300 to 400 range is perfect for that. So
Don't want to hurt anybody.
definitely. Mark 23 is kind of the go-to sidearm for a lot of people out here. Like you saw, Tony's got the Beretta from KWA. I personally use, I've got 2 KWA pistols I use. One's a USP compact and one's a USP 45. I do like to have that really quick, like, follow-up shot where you can just continually fire. I'm not as caring about how quiet my gun is, where the Mark 23s are extremely quiet and you can barely hear them. Whereas gas pistols like the KWAs that we use are really loud. You can instantly tell where someone is. So that's a big downside to it, but it doesn't affect my playstyle. We'll touch on playstyle and how this kind of ties into it later on. So this next portion, we're going to talk about the gear we wear. Usually as snipers, we don't wear a lot of gear. Try and wear something lightweight. We don't have a lot of weight, ammunition, or anything like that on us. So let's start with Tony, and we'll go from there.
All right, so what I personally run, generally it's my VSR, my 96 is the sidearm, as we said. I'll carry the pistol, and I have a full-on tack vest that I zip-tied a holster to the side that I locked my Mark 23 in. Zip tying may be seen as a little ghetto, but the point is, like, the mag, it doesn't move at all. So when I run around and stuff, it doesn't get in the way. I can go prone. I don't have to worry about losing a mag. There's nowhere for the mag to release. And then on the front, I just got a couple little molly pouches on it, VSR mags, 96 mags, or pistols on the side of a few on the side. It's very lightweight. It's nice to have in case I fall and eat shit or get shot in the back or any of that stuff. And then sometimes I'll run a drop leg for the Mark if I'm feeling like I don't want to wear a vest, and I'll just t-shirt it. But generally I stay as light as possible. I wear FG camo pants. That's kind of our team thing. We found it blends really well in most environments. It's a little counterintuitive because I wear half black from the waist up.
Yeah, that's why it works. So.
Basic mesh mask and mesh goggles, because you really can't beat the clarity of not having to worry about your gear fogging on you, which is a big deal. We have yet to find a really good anti-fog glasses that are not $300 that do the job. So that's about what I run for my loadout.
It's not bad. I'll do like a tactical belt or battle belt, as some call it. It'll have like a large pouch for grenades, either EG67s or Enola Gay smoke grenades, spare pistol mags, things like that. I'll have a Serpa holster for my USP compact or USP full size. It generally fits both pretty well. I will usually have a couple of magazine pouches that don't always get used. Sometimes I just throw random things in them. I also wear FG pants like the rest of NBR, because I usually roll with them when I'm out here in Washington. I do occasionally run just like flat out OD green pants. They work for me too. I'm pretty happy with them. And I've got actually a really nice Under Armour top that I wear that works out really well. It's kind of like a really warm fitting, and it's got some Velcro on the sides that works out pretty well. Aside from that, magazines, I usually carry 3 or 4 VSR. Usually carry one of the 50 round AA ones, and they feed really well in my JG Bar 10. I've seen they don't feed as well as some guns. It really varies, I've seen. Usually carry 2 to 3 mags for the USP, and that just about does it. Most of us wear mesh goggles, I've noticed. Mesh lower is very important. We've seen too many teeth get shot out and too many bridges of the noses get whipped pretty good by BBs.
Dental's expensive.
Yeah, dental's not cheap. We've had people
Mesh
get
is
shot
cheap,
out.
mouths are not.
Yeah, seriously. Neither are eyes. We haven't really had any issues with mesh goggles out here either, I feel like.
Nope.
A lot of places down, like I feel like in California, or at least I've heard, they'll be like anti-mesh. You got to have actual plastic goggles.
Which in turn is easier for them to stay down there because they have more warm weather, which causes less fogging than the cool, damp weather that we have up here in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Up here, you have to spend a lot of time or a lot of money in order to get a actual pair of goggles to work that aren't mesh.
They're gonna have to have fans in them, yeah.
Yeah.
Our friend has a pair, but they were like $300, and it's just you go running 10 feet and freaking not gonna see nothing. You can't be taking those out in the field, lose some eyeballs.
Definitely not. So we run mesh, mesh goggles, mesh lower. They're not terribly expensive and they work well. Aside from that, that's pretty much my gear. What about you, Dustin?
Well, I run a Condor tactical belt or battle belt, same way Andrew does. I run a adjustable Condor holster from a Mark 23. I run I think I run like 4 different double mag pouches. They're all pistol mag pouches, but they work really well for my VSR and my L96 mags. And I use 2 of them for spare magazines from a Mark 23. I have a Condor OD green dump pouch on my belt. All my pouches are OD green. And I also have a little tool pouch that I just recently picked up for my battle belt as well. I run lower and goggles, both mesh, both OD green. And I also run a ghillie veil and a ghillie viper hood.
Nice.
Also, on note on that, you want to pass me that mag real quick so I can make a quick point that we should totally throw out. So a big thing Dustin mentioned is, for all my L96 fans out there, you can use the little pistol mag pouches for your vest, and you can compress the mag as so and just place them in there, and you don't have to worry because it won't damage the mag to have it compressed down for a long period of time. That's how they sit in the rifles themselves, so it makes it as small as a VSR, if not smaller. Just make sure to place the tip of it upwards so it doesn't get broken off on anything, but it works perfectly with the mags, just as a side note.
Cool, good point. All right, next topic we're going to cover is ammo. This is such a key aspect to sniping, it's crazy. If you don't have quality ammo, your gun's simply not going to perform at the quality level or consistency that you're wanting. Generally, between all 3 of us, we're going to use BioShot as kind of our go-to ammunition, but we've also used a few other things that we'll talk about here in a second. We mainly use 0.45 gram ammo, which is some of the heavier stuff you can get. Not necessarily the heaviest, but definitely in the heavier, extremely heavy range. So Tony, how about you go ahead and start by talking about the BB you've used and your experiences with those.
Alright, so I've tried a few different brands, and I'll throw some warnings out in a second. First of all, as we said, BioShot has been my favorite brand I've used so far, and we should mention we are not sponsored by any of these brands in this video. Right. This is purely just speculation of what we've seen, but aside from that, BioShot 4.5s are my go-to ammo. I have tried the HPA 4.8s, I've tried the Longbow 4.8s, and I found really great consistency with those as well. However, BioShots are biodegradable, which most fields require in Washington, sadly. Good for the environment. But they're definitely a really well-rounded round to use. And the great thing about the 4.5 is you can keep a really high velocity and speed so it doesn't take a year to reach your target, as far as having great accuracy as well and a good grouping at that 300, 350 foot range. And a big warning I was going to throw out is you need to be careful with these brands, because a few years ago when the Mad Bull Tans disappeared, we were all looking for ammo, and we found, and I will not note any of the companies that made them, but there's a lot of clones of BioShot that try to make white 4s, 4.3s, and 4.5s, and they're bad, meaning like these rounds would be 6.10, they jam in your gun, they break your barrels, they would shoot left to right, up to down, anything you can imagine, zigzags even. And the only 3 brands I can really recommend, BioShot being number 1, would be HPA, BioShot, Longbow. Another thing to note though about BioShot, the only downside, not to harp on them, hi cat, is going to be the fact that there is a life expectancy we have found, and that is about 6 months for me, maybe different for them. But sealed tight in a sealed tight perfect mason jar, me and Dustin here will share a bag of 3,000. They're $50, and that'll get us through a few months of playing. That's a lot of rounds for bolt action, I understand. We share them with friends and such. but we get just ultimate consistency and accuracy out of those rounds. So that's what I'd recommend you get to start. What I recommend definitely is to do not drop below a .4, even stock. Doesn't matter what you do your gun. .4 is the minimum you should use because of the accuracy. You'll get massive deviation below that. It's important to have a heavier weight so you can keep velocity and consistency through your shots.
Now a note to add to that. He says don't drop below a .4, even on a stock gun. On a stock gun, half the time you'll have a problem lifting a .4 gram BB, so you may have to use something as low as like a 3.2, but I wouldn't go anything below even a 3.2 on a stock gun. Stock guns, your 3.2, you should be able to get
At least reasonable groups.
150 to 200 feet, at least within like a 10-inch grouping, give or take a little bit.
Yeah.
L96s I found that tend to shoot better stock than VSRs do, but it's because they come with a top dead center arm pressure versus the VSR having a side look, like the side scroller style arm. I don't know.
Slider.
Yeah, slider style adjustment hop. Whereas the L96, you actually have to adjust it with an Allen key from below, so it applies even pressure on the top.
Hence, don't run stock guns. Get an upgraded rifle if you're going to do this, because you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, don't run stock guns. Yeah. But anyway, I've noticed with my experience, I kind of got on board with their BioShot idea, and they are fantastic rounds. I ran 4.3s for a while before the 4.5s came out. My 4.3s lasted probably 9 to 12 months, somewhere in there, before they just ultimately got so bad I couldn't use them. I took them out to a Nighthawk game, and they were curving left and right, and I couldn't hit a thing past 100 feet. Opened up a brand new bag of 4.5s, and they were just zipping right down the center of that scope, and they were fantastic. I have tried the HPA, high-powered airsoft BBs as well, and they're also excellent, but they are massively expensive. They're very good, very highly polished rounds, even slightly more so than the BioShot. Just keep in mind, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for them. It's hard to say if they're really worth the extra or not. I haven't really tested them a whole lot. Tony's got some experience with the longbow. I unfortunately do not. But my go-to is kind of the BioShot 4.5s. I've had the best experiences with them, and they're very consistent. What about you, Dustin? Kind of the same deal?
Yeah, I mean, at one point or another, we all ran strictly the 4.3s from BioShot, and when we heard that BioShot was coming out with the 4.5s, we're all skeptical because, at a heavier ammo, things, we thought maybe there might be a little bit of a fluctuation or an issue with them, or maybe even an FPS loss, too much of an FPS loss, things like that. I remember the very first time any of the three of us ran 4.5s at an event called Chris Kringle, here, held by a team called the Rainier Group, and we threw 4.5s in and have not looked back since, because 4.3s, even the same setups we have in our gun now, the 4.3s had just slight deviations left or right because of the wind. Things like 4.5s and 4.8s, they just hold their consistency from the moment it leaves the barrel all the way to the target. And ammo is an extremely important thing. You can throw .4s in it, as if you really wanted to. You can go as low as .4s and a nice high-powered gun. If it's not a good quality brand with a good quality polish to them, you're going to end up missing the target 9 times out of 10.
Right. And let me elaborate on that a little bit. I recently did a build for a friend back at Eastern, and her rifle essentially, she was on a little more of a budget, didn't want to spend a ton of money on BBs. She ended up getting Matrix .43s. And trust me, cheaper ammo you want to absolutely avoid like the plague. I ran those 4.3s in my gun, and they just zipped left and right, and I looked at them, and they had a consistent seam around every single BB, which will destroy your accuracy. So seamless, high polish, good quality ammo is an absolute must, or else you're just not going to enjoy sniping.
Not to mention the fact that, remember, with sniping, the FPS loss can get great, and you want to find a good medium where you can get to your target fast. That's the whole point in the high FPS and why we love it, is you get to the target quickly and effectively, so if they're running or they duck and move around, you want to be able to hit them and not take 6 years to actually take your target out, because that's a big difference at the long 300-foot plus ranges. You need that speed to be able to get to them quickly.
Right.
Saying like Andrew was saying, that seam on the BB causing inaccuracy issues, and versus a well-polished, completely round BB, you run into the difference of I pull up my sights, I pull the trigger, and it hits somebody. versus I pull it up and I have to rack the bolt another 8 times in order to actually land on the target where I wanted it.
And at that point, you might as well have a DMR.
Exactly.
And they'll feel it with a 4 or 5 because it's moving, so it makes solid contact to that target. They know they got
they
hit.
hear it. You'll hear it as well. They'll feel it. You will hear it
Across the field.
Mm-hmm.
Without hurting anybody.
Because even at 250 feet, with our guns the way we have them set up, shooting 400 FPS with a 4 or 5 in them, it's still carrying like a 2 to 2.5 dual ratio. By the time it makes that target at like 200 to 250 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it still hurts plenty. So they know it's coming, and you can still hear it plenty.
All right, so next segment here is going to be play style. How do we each play? Essentially, we all play in a very different manner. We're kind of on a spectrum as far as how we play versus Tony, myself, and Dustin. Tony's a very go-getter, get out in the front, very aggressive. I'm kind of a little more lean back, but I still like to get up in the front and kind of pwn people. Dustin is a much more lean back,
Very passive sniper.
Very passive. Let's start with Tony. We'll kind of go around the circle here.
Shit. Alright, so the way I do it is I like to fight my targets head on, which is a little frowned upon in the sniper community. But especially with my VSR here, due to the Teflon bolt, as you see, I can rack shots pretty quick. So I like to get up in the action with people. I like to be part of the battle. I get some people like to sit back, which the big thing is I have the range to get back in the 350 foot, 300 range. But it's really about being up in the action for me. And I get to use my Mark 23 a lot. Sometimes I rock my friend's GAT. His friend Nick's got a really awesome GAT with a 550 round mag. It's sweet to be able to bust that out and get up in the AAG ranges. But as well, when I'm having fights with people with my sniper rifle, I know that even though I'm within their engagement, when I peek out and shoot, it takes 1 shot versus 10 from them. So it's kind of cool to be in the heat of battle. The adrenaline gets going. It's a good fight. Like I said, sometimes I do stick back a bit further, and I'm more of a support, back everybody up. But I like to be up there kind of like a leader to help bring all the airsofters in the back to the front and keep them fighting. So
Interesting play style. Myself, I like to be up in the action. I like to get some kills, more so than just sitting back and getting a handful of kills per game. But I like to still sit back a little bit. Whereas, my bar 10 has roughly a 300-foot range, give or take, maybe a bit more. And I try and take advantage of that range. I like to sit back a little bit behind most of the riflemen pushing up and just get a few select kills and kind of have a balanced fun there. Where I still die a handful of times, I still get a few hits on me, but I get a decent number of kills as well. So it's kind of a balanced, middle-of-the-road style play. Whereas Dustin's is a bit more laid back, so tell me about that.
So, when you think about sniping and you think about your Call of Duty video games or Battlefield video games, regardless of what you think about when it comes to sniping, you think of 2 play styles. Either A, you're the person up in the front lines, trying to help with the troops like Tony does. He's aggressive. He's the assault sniper play style. Myself, I prefer to ghillie out, wait in the bushes, wait somewhere where nobody can see me, and just take the precise shots that they don't expect to see coming. I like to sneak around, I like to hide, I like to be the unknown force that stops somebody from pushing on a flank. There's a lot of times where it does take more patience than either of these guys' play styles. It takes a lot more time and effort to get good at a ghillie style playstyle, because you have to learn how to be stealth, you have to learn how to make your movements minimal, make your adjustments minimal so that you aren't as noticed by someone that's 150 feet away and they hadn't noticed you yet, so you can get your gun on target without them noticing the movement. Personally speaking, I don't mind only getting 4 or 5 kills around. Sometimes I get more, sometimes I get less. Just depends on, if I pick a good spot to post up and hide. Other times, I ended up dying because I picked the wrong spot. And I get stormed because the entire enemy team decides to say, hey, we're going to go down this one front. And I have no support. But most of the time, I end up maybe dying once in an entire day playing. Which is, to me, it's a good feeling knowing that you're well hidden enough that no one can see you and you kill everybody else. Which is where the Mark 23 comes in handy, because it's a dead silent pistol.
Right.
And I've ran into that situation, which is why I invested the money in the Mark 23, where I was in my ghillie before, and I've had a few guys walk in front of me and not notice me. But my pistol was so loud, the second I fired off a round, everybody was like, "Oh, there's somebody there." Mark 23 is inaudible if you set it up right, less than 10 feet away.
All right, this last section is going to be really geared toward the new players who wanted to get into sniping, who either are just getting to Airsoft or are coming from an AEG and want to start trying to snipe in Airsoft. It's a very different game than running an AEG, of course. So we're going to take it from Tony and kind of go around the circle again.
Alrighty, so my advice for all the new players is, one, if you're going to get into sniping, make sure that it is something you want to do, obviously, because there's nothing like dropping $600-700 on a gun, which Dustin has noted before in the past. I mean, you go out and blow all that money and you don't even like it, then they end up selling us the gun back a freaking 3 months later. So make sure it's what you want to do. And then when you want to do it, my recommendation, I know it's expensive, is just build it at once. Don't mess around. Spend all the money, build the gun right the first time. There's plenty of options on how to do it, plenty of builds. Like I recommended the full AA build with the KM head bucking, and preferably the Laylax 555. The downside is you need to cut the bridge of the barrel to fit. However, there's a lot of builds out there. I know Airsoft Atlanta doesn't show me for around $550, $100. They've got a custom build with all the parts I listed, and they'll even install it for you if you're not comfortable. But I think it's important in sniping and Airsoft to learn to work on the gun, because VSRs especially are very easy to work on.
Yeah, they're super easy.
So,
as opposed to like AEGs.
Like I said, figure out if that's what you want to do. If it is, I'd buy all the parts at once. Third, ammo is the biggest freaking deal. Like, even if you have a stock to medium upgraded rifle, you should definitely buy the best ammo quality you can, which BioShot is kind of what we're recommending as a group. I wouldn't go lower than a 4. If you're running a stock rifle, I guess maybe a 3.2, but I think you're just wasting your time because AEGs are probably going to wreck you. You should just spend the money and build the gun right the first time. And as a side note, I said the VSR, pros and cons: lightweight, accurate, 300 feet, easy to work on, super easy. I bought this Matrix optic for $60, or Dustin has a really nice $40 optic you can buy off Amazon that we may link in the description. Also, if you're looking for something else, I would say for newer players, the 96 is my personal favorite platform because I think at the longest ranges of 300 plus, it holds more true. The rounds when you shoot will drop straight down like in real life, which makes it an optimal platform for a 350 foot shot, which are actually achievable by these date standards. And if you're going to go this route, like I said, Action Army is definitely great, as Laylax parts are a little overpriced. Do expect the gun is twice as heavy as a VSR, and my arms are pretty noodly. So I'm letting you know that when I hold this gun up all day, my arms start to kind of break off. So I mean, if that's something you don't want to deal with, which I don't have the time sadly, then you definitely want to go with the VSR platform, which is going to be a lot more lightweight, compact, and, you know, your stealthy approach. And they're also very quiet rifles. And when you run the 555, it comes about halfway through the suppressor, which it's protected by, obviously. So you can go with a shorter barrel, as Andrew has done. It's not too much of a big difference. But like I said, just to recap, definitely make sure it's what you want to do. Spend the money all at once. Build a good gun, so you don't have to worry about getting, you know, short-ended. Like, you go out to take a shot and you miss because you didn't spend the extra $50 on the hop-up chamber. It's definitely worth doing, and I think the AA chamber is the best on the market for the VSR 10. And
or even the Laylax. The Laylax has its AA chamber as well.
It does. It's totally up to you and your preference, but I've had no problems whatsoever with my gun, and I love it. I think AA is a great company to use, so that would probably be my points for new players. And also, not to forget, actually, don't get discouraged is a big deal. It's going to take a lot of time to get used to it and the play style, so just stick through it and have fun and give it a shot if that's what you're into.
Absolutely. We can all agree on all the points Tony made about spending money, just do it all right the first time, which I completely agree with. Some of the different points I'm going to make in my slightly different opinion in some ways is do what you can with what you have. He's more do everything at once, and I get that. If you have the money, absolutely do it. But myself as a college student, I built this before I went back to college, and I had the money. This is, you know, $600 into this thing, and it shoots. I'm very happy with the way it shoots. But if you're a player where you've got $300 to spend and you want to get into sniping, you can easily go grab a JG Bar 10 for $100 and put $200 of parts in it, and still got to shoot relatively well. And obviously the key there is getting the right ammo. So spend the necessary money for the right ammo and do what you can with upgrades to the rest of it. You can get a good bucking, a barrel, some new trigger sears, and any other parts you really need for a few $100s. It's going to cost you a bit. It can take time, so do what you can with what you have, and you're going to appreciate sniping in a whole different way once you start to get your gun built the way you want it to. So one thing I will touch on too, I did not upgrade my bolt. Like I said, I like keeping guns as stock as you can until you absolutely can't anymore. So I've got the stock bolt in mind. I've not had an issue with it. These guys all run Teflon bolts from various companies, but this one works great for me. And if it breaks, I have a spare. I'm pretty happy to replace it without a problem, and it takes a few minutes for me. So it's just kind of my 2 cents for you new players out there. You know, if you don't have the money, you don't want to spend the money, do what you can with what you have. If not, just go all in and spend the necessary money, take the necessary time, and build the gun that you want to build so you can have a fun time playing Airsoft. Dustin, what are your thoughts for new players out there?
Personally speaking, I don't think sniping is the right thing for a brand new player to Airsoft. It's just not. Most people that find it will go in, buy a stock sniper rifle, and expect it to perform like a $600 bolt action will. Mm-hmm. And they get severely disappointed and they get turned away from it. My tip to it is buy an AEG to start. A little $150 SEMA AK or something like that. Something simple, something you can run around with, get 150 to 175 foot range, plink your friends with. Something, you know, that's effective but still cheap. If you have a buddy that has a high-powered bolt action, they've already put the money into it, they've already invested the time to make it a good gun, see if they'll let you run it for a round. Maybe a round or two, see if see if it fits your play style, see if you like what you need to do in order to play it properly. Because it has a different engagement rules, it has different play style completely because you don't get to spam the trigger. It's a one shot every time you pull the trigger. You know, we've had people, like we stated before, that bought full $600 guns and just were not happy with it after it was done. Even though the gun shot just fine, everything was good, it just wasn't their play style. My advice is test it before you buy it. Because if you spend the $600 and you don't end up liking it, you'll never get that $600 back out of the gun. It's just the way it works.
You'll get half of what the gun's worth.
You'll be lucky if you get $400 to $300 out of the gun. Simple as it gets.
If precision's your thing and one shot's your thing, it's the way to go.
It's an extremely
otherwise,
satisfying play style. We all love it. Obviously, we all play differently, but give it a try, definitely, if you have the ability to, and see if it's right for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the ability, you don't know anybody that's willing to let you run their $600 bolt action gun for a round or two, then Andrew's method isn't a bad one. Upgrade. The thing that I would suggest to focus on if you have limited funds to upgrade the accuracy on it. Upgrade the hop-up chamber, the bucking, the barrel, because you could run a low FPS sniper rifle and still get good accuracy results if you upgrade the front end of the gun. Mm-hmm. So if you have the means to upgrade a little bit, but not the full package, upgrade the accuracy components of the gun. If you have the means to fully upgrade it, cool, and that's something you want to do it. That's what I did with my MBO3. I tried it stock. I got a kill. I killed Andrew. It was kind of funny at the time because he thought I was spamming an AG and he only got one BB on him, but it's bolt stock. If it's something 200% that you're going to get into and it's something you're not going to avoid doing, something you're going to enjoy, spend the money. Don't even hesitate. Spend the money that you need to do to build it perfect from front to back. It takes a little fine-tuning, so if you know somebody that knows something about it, the more knowledge they empowering you, the better. If not, obviously, Andrew has a lot of knowledge on it, and if you ever want knowledge from me or Tony, you always ask Andrew and we can pass it on type attitude.
Definitely, because there's a few things that can be a bit sticky with upgrades. Sometimes things don't mesh right and you do some editing, and we definitely know all the little tricks to those to get you past that.
Oh, yeah.
So
even the last VSR I built, it needed some serious filing down of parts just to get some like Action Army to work with JG. Even though that works fine with this one, it won't work fine with the next one, even if they're identical parts and guns. So it really varies.
That's why he requested us to be part of the video, as we're willing to take the time out of our day to kind of help you guys out and save you those hours of crap and stuff that we dealt with in frustration to get our guns to shoot the way we wanted them so you can have the most fun you can.
Simple example of parts not fitting together like Andrew was just talking about. I have a buddy named Caleb. He ordered the Echo One
PS
full action army
Yeah.
build from Airsoft Atlanta. He got his parts in and he was having a little bit of a problem with his bolt slam firing. And it's because his trigger shear wasn't catching the piston. Problem being is the piston didn't fit correctly in the slot on the actual cylinder. I gave him a little couple of tips. He was able to get it done, and now it fires perfectly every single time.
Last little thing we're going to tack on here are some closing thoughts, things we want to kind of just tack on to other segments or things that don't relate at all. So, Dustin, how about you go ahead?
All right, a couple of things I want to touch on. I guess as final thoughts. Obviously, like we said, you know, when it comes to new recommendations, make sure it's something that you want to do before you do it. It's a huge investment in order to get a gun and get it done right. So make sure it's something you want to do. And something I can't stress, I guess, enough when it comes to actually being a bolt action sniper, do not cheap out on your sidearm. A good sidearm makes the difference between a dead sniper and a live one. I spent $200 buying my Tokyo Marui Mark 23. So did Tony. And I mean, I put more upgrades into it just to make sure I knew every single time I pulled the trigger, it was going to go right where I was aiming. So, sidearms are a very key and necessity for a good sniper. You can't engage into 100 feet, they're useless.
All right. One thing I want to add to sidearms that I've been trying to do lately more is you can also use smaller AEGs for a sidearm, depending if you want the size and the weight on you or whatever. I've been using the Echo One RDP. They're a little harder to find, but they're an all polymer body. They're extremely lightweight. Then they shoot really well. You can get them up shooting upwards 150, 200 feet, no problem, even with mostly stock components. And they shoot pretty soft, so even like inside of buildings or anything like that, they're fine for most fields as far as a sidearm. I usually sling mine up with a weapon catch, then just throw it behind me, and it's a really simple setup, and it seems to work really well, and I like it. So just something to keep in mind. You can definitely do that with like a Galaxy MP5K or another light SMG, things along those lines. I know Nick, one of our other buddies in NBR, he uses the GAT. That's
Echo
kind
One
of the,
GAT.
Yeah, the Echo One GAT, and it's kind of a kind of the brother of the RDP as far as Echo One guns go. It's a metal body, a little heavier, but it rips. It really gets out there. It's got a 200-foot range, no problem, and it's definitely a fantastic option if you want the firepower of a sidearm and a small AEG. All right, Tony, give us your final thoughts.
Basically a big recap. Like I said, figure out what you want to do. You know, like I said, I mean, VSR, let's say you want to do sniping for sure. VSR, take quick shots, you know, take people out, be in battle range. Good rifle, get some long shots. L96, you're going for the maximum range, especially gilling out like Dustin and Nicola agree. The L96 is a great freaking platform for taking your targets out at 300 plus. No problem, no compensation. So that's a big thing to remember is depending on your play style, the gun's going to change. You want to lug around a big L96 all day? Not really. You're going to assault like I do. VSR is probably your choice. Good ammo, like we said. Get those BioShot rounds, 4 or 5s for sure. If you're into it, just upgrade the gun all at once to avoid any unexpected crap you're going to have to deal with down the road. Don't get discouraged, obviously. It's going to be a little tough at first. You might get killed a lot. Get into it, have fun, and that's the biggest thing of Airsoft, though, is having a blast. Getting out there, having a good time with your friends. So that's really all I have to add other than that.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, all honesty, as long as you're having fun with it at the end of the day, that's what's important, because why else do a hobby?
Exactly.
If you're not going to have fun with it.
Pretty much.
In final thoughts from all of us, it's Airsoft. It's meant to have fun, and go hang out with your friends and play Airsoft. It's a fantastic sport. Given, it can be expensive, but it's a load of fun. I hope all our information's been helpful. These are just our experiences from many years of airsofting, sniping, and just buying things and trying them and then putting them in our guns. So a lot of effort on our parts is to get things that we like, that work, and hopefully our experiences have been helpful to you as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Product Chief of Kilo23. This is Tony and Dustin with NBR, New Beta Republic. Thanks for watching, and take care.